sort of our standard, I guess, anything that's not Italian, our romantic. A lot of our solo repertoire came from one specific Italian composer, and this, on the other hand, is a piece that is more in the style of like the Brahms Violin Concerto or the Tchaikovsky, and so I hope that kind of sums it up. The intro is it's a bit awkward without the piano, but yeah.
Obviously, none of us are bass players, although I can get around the bass a little bit. And luckily, I actually have to hear this piece. So I sit in all the blow-string juries at the university, so I hear this piece a lot.
That's perfect.
No, I know it very, 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 very well. Like 21 years of hearing this piece of jury. So I'm gonna ask a couple questions of you. Are you a cellist? Were you a cellist?
No.
Or you have like the technique of a cellist, I was curious. And do you have a private teacher?
Yes.
Are you studying bass with? So you're like consistently seeing that person every week? And
I mean, not every week. It's been a little inconsistent, but I mean, that's at one point. Yes.
Yeah, good. Well, it sounds great. This is a big piece for bass players, like you said. This is like the standard concerto. And the fact that he's getting to work with a private teacher on it's great because he can kind of guide you through some of the important things. There's a couple things I might address just from the standpoint of like making something feel natural. I also happen to know, because I've heard this piece so many times, I know exactly what the orchestra's doing while you're playing it. So there are two things I want to touch on. The first one is this whole opening section, not the intro, because I thought that was great, but from where the tune appears in the bass, number 2 for you. It is one of these lyrical singing lines. Koussevitzky himself was like a fabulous technician on the bass, also a great conductor too. But he conducted a lot of opera, And he was a big believer in like singing and vocalism and stuff. And what's, for all of you string players in here, one of the things that we can do that singers can't do is we can just turn the bow around freely. And we don't ever have to feel like we breathe. So what tends to happen when we do that as string players is that things don't feel natural because there's no pause, there's no breath, there's no like recapturing ourselves and going. That's what makes wind players and brass players, I know there's some of you in here, so good at phrasing, is that they have to breathe to play their instruments. And so for you, this whole opening section, from basically 2 to 3, it can feel like one giant sentence without any breaths.
Yeah.
But I wonder if, would you be nervous singing in front of the class?
Not at all.
Okay, so can you do me a favor and can you just sing, maybe just from here? Just sing from the second bar of 2, and I'm gonna kind of make note of where you need to breathe, but also it's not just about breathing, but it's about how he shapes and phrases as he sings this. And no judging, this is a closed space.
He's an artist, Josh.
What's that?
He's already a singer, I think.
I know, well, he's clearly not nervous to do it, but if you miss some pitches, it's no big deal. We're just after the gestures.
Okay.
All right, that's good. We're good. Bravo. And thanks for all of that. All right, so a couple of things I noticed, just to point it out, because I'm just going to kind of call out what we heard in your singing. That was one phrase.
Right.
You took a breath here. Then, and you went up a third, right, to this section, and he even marks it. Koussevitzky tells you what to do. He puts mezzo forte there for you. All of a sudden, you sang more at that moment, right? Right here, again, he doesn't write crescendo, right? He writes mezzo forte. There's a subito dynamic. That's exactly where you breathe. Perfect. It's actually like he's almost telling you with his dynamics how to shape. So you took a big breath right there. I think you wanted to kind of soar more through this section vocally, but because it was at the top of your range, you weren't quite able to do it. But you also took a big breath after this long B natural. So you start here, you took a little breath right there, right here before the E, and then you took a big breath right before the C natural. And you were trying to sort through that, but you didn't have time. So can you play it once, and can you just think about where you breathed, and like, also vocally, like where you had to really stretch to get something.
I see.
Yeah. Good phrase. I wouldn't even be afraid to like pick the bow up ever so slightly off the string before you start that. So it really does feel like a subito mezzo forte as opposed to like a gesture in the mezzo forte. Yeah, and maybe like not as if, you know, like not that there's a rest there, but it feels like we just have to recollect ourselves and take a breath. That's already better. And even here, like in that crescendo, you just, when you sang it, again, it was at the top of your range, but you just needed like a little moment to catch that high E. Right? So don't be afraid to do that. And the other thing is, I think because the writing is so lyrical here versus some of the stuff on the second page, you can take your time in those moments. I also happen to know that the orchestral accompaniment can be quite flexible in this tune. as opposed to, say, like when we get to the up-tempo here in the triplets, you don't have a whole lot of flexibility, even though you took a lot of flexibility, which we can talk about in a second. But did that sound more natural to you guys out there?
Definitely. You know, the one thing I think you could use is, we're in this kind of an auditorium. It's a concerto, so hopefully you'll get to play with the symphony someday, which means sound projection and thinking about how you need to project and what kind of gestures might go along with that. So this was so much better. Now I wonder if you start thinking on a larger scope and try and actually share some of these gestures just need to be bigger.
I see. Okay.
And I'll point out, can I borrow your bass for 1 second? This is like you don't need to stand up.
Oh.
I just need a bass and a bow. Whoops. So a piano dynamic can mean all sorts of different things. So usually piano means soft in Italian, but it means soft like a pillow, not like dynamically soft. And forte means firm or strong, but it's actually more like a firmness. So a piano dynamic is have air in it, and then a forte dynamic could be more in the string, right? So I think the projection of sound that way, think about like color, and not necessarily like volume, right? Like.
And did you hear the difference? Like, because it sounds different where you are than where we hear, right? So you have to get comfortable with that difference in the sound. It's not the same like beautiful sound that you're used to hearing as an audience member. It's got a lot more focus inside.
Try the opening section one more time, then maybe we should probably stop because I think we're gonna run out of time.
Yeah.
So just more dramatized all around.
Just think that you're throwing, like almost imagine you're playing to your teacher and Will out there. And that you feel like you're throwing your sound out there, but you're within the dynamic. So the piano dynamic is soft, like a pillow. Like it just feels very comforting and warm and beautiful. And then as you get into the bigger dynamics, like the forte, it feels a little stronger, a little like harder and more in the string. Try once. That's it. Yeah, that's a forte. I can tell from up here that's like a world difference, yeah.
How does that feel to you as a player?
It's definitely more open. I wish I could work a little bit more with the instrument. It's not.
Yeah.
I mean, but all things considered, it's definitely more enjoyable to project like that.
Yeah, because it also, what I sensed was a lot more confidence.
Yeah,
right.
Behind what you're saying. Because then, we were talking earlier about the different variations of about the performance. It actually just engages you to be that much more stronger and effective.
And one of the concepts I think maybe translates to everybody in this room who's a musician is that we see P for piano, F for forte, MF for mezzo forte, and we think about how loud the music is. But it's not really about that. It's about what the character of the sound is doing. Because in a concerto, you can't really play piano.
Right.
But you need to sound as if that's the character of the sound that you're using, even though you have to project over an orchestra or a piano or whatever you're playing with. So, and it's probably true in all of your orchestral music too, is like you see forte, and it's not just like loud. It's like, what's the character of that dynamic? And that can help you get more color, more variety in your playing, all sorts of stuff.
We have to wrap up. I think the bell is about to go.